In the heart of Harborview, a sprawling city where towering skyscrapers cast long shadows over crowded streets, the rhythm of everyday life pulsed with restless energy. People hurried by, their faces a blur of indifference, their steps quick and purposeful, locked in the dance of routine and survival. The city seemed alive, vibrant even, with neon signs flickering, street vendors calling out their wares, and the constant hum of traffic weaving through the urban maze. Yet beneath this energetic surface lay a current of unease, invisible to most, but sensed by a few. On a busy street corner near the intersection of Elm and Fifth, a teenage girl stood trembling, her eyes wide with desperation. Lily was no more than 16, with tangled brown hair falling unevenly around her face, and clothes that hung loosely on her slight frame, worn and stained from days of hardship. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "Please, someone, help me!" But the city's pulse didn't falter. Passers-by glanced her way. Some quickened their pace, others averted their gaze, each unwilling or unable to break the invisible barrier that separated them from her plight. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. A man in a tailored suit brushed past, earbuds in, oblivious. An elderly woman clutched her shopping bags tightly, avoiding eye contact. A group of teenagers laughed on the corner, their attention fixed on their phones. Fear, apathy, and distraction combined into a wall that Lily could not breach. The city's indifference swallowed her cries, rendering her invisible in plain sight. Among the crowd, Marcus Holt stood apart, his gaze sharp and unwavering. A former Navy SEAL, Marcus moved with a quiet intensity, a man shaped by discipline and experience, carrying the weight of his past in his steady stride. His dark eyes scanned the street, landing on Lily's desperate figure. Something about her, the raw fear, the urgency, pierced through the noise of the city. Without hesitation, Marcus stepped forward. By his side, Rex, a large black German shepherd with keen eyes and an alert posture, growled low in his throat. The dog's instincts flared, sensing a shadow beneath the city's surface that others ignored. Rex's ears twitched, his body tense as he sniffed the air, detecting a scent of danger that lingered around the corner where Lily had been dragged just moments before. His hackles rose, a silent warning that something was deeply wrong in this part of Harborview. Marcus knelt beside Lily, his voice calm but firm. "Hey, are you okay? What happened?" Lily's eyes darted nervously, scanning the street, as if the menace that chased her might still be lurking nearby. "They took me. Someone. They tried to drag me into a van," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I got away. But I'm scared. They're still out there." The city around them continued its indifferent pace. Cars honked impatiently, pedestrians jostled past, and the neon glow from nearby signs cast eerie reflections on rain-slicked pavement. No one stopped to help. No one asked questions. The urban sprawl of Harborview, with its gleaming towers and crowded alleys, masked a darker truth. Beneath the surface of its vibrant facade, a menace thrived. Marcus's mind raced. His years in the Navy SEALs had taught him to trust his instincts, to read the subtle signs that others overlooked. Lily's fear was real, and the threat she escaped was far from isolated. Rex's growl deepened, his nose leading Marcus's gaze toward a narrow side street shadowed by dumpsters and flickering street lamps. The scent was faint but unmistakable, a trail of danger. "Stay close," Marcus instructed, standing and positioning himself protectively between Lily and the street. Rex moved ahead, his powerful frame cutting through the crowd as he sniffed the ground, alert for any sign of pursuit. The city's noise seemed to dull around them, as if the tension thickened the air, compressing the space between danger and safety. Harborview was a city of contrasts. From the gleaming downtown towers, where ambition and wealth flourished, to the forgotten neighborhoods where shadows lengthened and secrets festered. The city's true face was hidden in plain sight. Marcus knew that beneath the surface of everyday life, a web of darkness had begun to spread, one that preyed on the vulnerable, cloaked in the anonymity of the urban jungle. As Marcus guided Lily away from the busy intersection, her sobs quieted, but her eyes remained wide with terror. He could feel the city's pulse quickening with the knowledge that the danger was close. Rex sniffed a discarded piece of cloth near the alley's entrance, pulling at it with his teeth before dropping it at Marcus's feet. It was torn, its fabric worn but marked with a symbol Marcus recognized from his time in covert operations. A warning, a signature left by those who operated in the shadows. The city's neon signs flickered overhead, casting a kaleidoscope of colors on the wet pavement. The hum of traffic mingled with distant sirens, but no help was coming. Harborview's streets, bustling by day and shrouded in menace by night, held their secrets tightly. And tonight, those secrets had almost claimed another victim. Marcus's jaw tightened. He glanced back once more at Lily, determination hardening his features. This was no random moment of cruelty. It was a symptom of a deeper rot within the city, a darkness that had to be confronted. With Rex at his side, the dog whose instincts were as finely tuned as his own, Marcus resolved to uncover what lurked beneath Harborview's surface. Together, they slipped away from the crowded street corner, moving toward the shadows where danger waited. The city's heartbeat thudded. Around them, a reminder that in Harborview, every shadow might hide a threat, and every cry for help risked being swallowed by the noise of indifference. But Marcus Holt was not one to turn away, and Rex was not one to ignore a threat. In the midst of Harborview's vibrant chaos, a silent battle was beginning, one that would test the limits of courage, loyalty, and vigilance in a city where darkness thrived behind the bright lights. The dim light of a flickering street lamp illuminated the small, cluttered room, where Lily sat curled on a worn sofa, her knees drawn to her chest. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and old paper, a stark contrast to the bustling city just beyond the cracked window. Shadows danced along the peeling walls, mirroring the turmoil within Lily's young heart. She stared at her trembling hands, trying to steady the rapid pulse that echoed her fear. Marcus Holt sat opposite her, his posture relaxed but alert, a steady presence amid the storm of her emotions. His dark eyes, sharp and searching, softened as he listened. "You're safe here," he assured her quietly. "No one's going to hurt you now." Beside him, Rex lay calmly, his ears perked and eyes watchful. A silent guardian, attuned to every nuance of the room. Lily's story spilled out in fragments, snatches of memory blurred by fear and confusion. She was a bright girl, quick-witted and kind, but vulnerable in ways that the streets of Harborview exploited without mercy. She'd grown up in the city's neglected neighborhoods, places where opportunity was scarce and danger lurked in every shadow. Her family had struggled to keep her safe, but when her mother fell ill, the fragile safety net unraveled. "I thought I could handle it," Lily admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to ask for help. But then they came. The men in the van. They knew who I was, where I lived. I barely escaped." Her eyes filled with tears, but there was a flicker of defiance beneath the fear. "I don't want to be their next victim." Marcus nodded, his mind piecing together the puzzle. Lily was more than just a frightened girl. She was a symbol of the city's unseen struggles. His own past, forged in the crucible of military service, had taught him the value of resilience and the power of hope, even in the darkest circumstances. Here, in this narrow room far from the city's indifferent crowds, he found a purpose renewed. "I'm Marcus," he said, extending a hand. "I'm here to help you. And this is Rex." The dog lifted his head, eyes meeting Lily's, with a warmth that belied his imposing size. She reached out tentatively, running a hand along Rex's sleek fur, drawing strength from the bond between man and dog. Marcus's story was different, but no less compelling. A disciplined, empathetic man shaped by years of rigorous training and hard-won experience, he carried the weight of his military past with quiet dignity. His time as a Navy SEAL had honed not just his physical skills, but his sense of duty, to protect, to serve, and to fight injustice wherever it lurked. Rex was more than a companion. He was a partner, a finely tuned instrument of instinct and loyalty. Their bond had been forged through countless missions, a connection deeper than words. Together, they moved through the world with an unspoken understanding, each attuned to the other's needs and signals. In Rex's keen senses, Marcus found an edge that no ordinary ally could provide. As Marcus prepared to act, another presence quietly entered the scene, Detective Sarah Blake. Lean and determined, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, Sarah was a fixture in Harborview's complex tapestry. A local cop with a reputation for skepticism and grit, she had seen the city's underbelly from behind the badge and knew its dark corners better than most. Sarah's arrival was not by chance. She had been tracking reports of missing girls and suspicious activity, her instincts telling her that something larger was at play. When Marcus reached out, their paths converged. Two forces drawn together by a shared commitment to uncover the truth. Their partnership promised to be complex, Sarah's cautious pragmatism contrasting with Marcus's direct approach. But both understood the stakes. "I've heard about you," Sarah said, her voice steady but edged with curiosity. "A SEAL with a dog, not the usual cop's partner." Her eyes flicked to Rex, who sat obediently by Marcus's side, tail wagging slightly in acknowledgement. Marcus smiled faintly. "Rex's skills go beyond what you'd expect. We make a good team." He turned his attention back to Lily, whose presence was the catalyst for what was to come. "We're going to find out who's behind this, and stop them." The room seemed to shrink around them, the weight of the moment pressing in. Lily's vulnerability was matched by a growing resolve, bolstered by the strength of those around her. Marcus, Sarah, and Rex formed a fragile alliance, each bringing unique skills and perspectives to the fight ahead. Harborview itself loomed beyond the window, a city of contradictions. Its streets echoed with the laughter of children and the footsteps of dreamers, but also with the silent cries of those lost to its darker side. The vibrant pulse of life masked a hidden menace, one that preyed on innocence and thrived on fear. Within this landscape, Marcus's empathy bridged the gap between soldier and civilian, between protector and survivor. He saw in Lily not just a victim, but a beacon of hope, a chance to challenge the darkness and reclaim the city's fractured soul. Rex, ever vigilant, remained a steady guardian, his instincts a constant shield against unseen threats. Sarah's presence brought a grounded realism, a connection to the city's law enforcement and its limitations. Her knowledge of Harborview's underworld added depth to their understanding, revealing the layers of deception and corruption they would need to navigate. Together, they formed a coalition forged in urgency and purpose. As the night deepened, the three prepared to move beyond this small room of refuge. Lily's story was only the beginning, a thread leading into a labyrinth of peril and intrigue. Marcus's tactical mind mapped out possibilities. Sarah's investigative instincts sought clues, and Rex's nose searched the shadows for signs of danger. In the quiet moments before action, Lily glanced up, her eyes meeting Marcus's steady gaze. For the first time, a flicker of trust ignited, a fragile but vital spark. Here, in the midst of a city that often turned its back on those in need, she found a lifeline. The trio stepped into the night, ready to unravel the mysteries concealed within Harborview's sprawling streets. Together, they would confront the hidden threats, armed with courage, skill, and an unbreakable bond forged through shared purpose. The city's vibrant surface hid many secrets, but Marcus Holt, Lily, Sarah Blake, and Rex were determined to bring the truth into the light, one step at a time. The warehouse district of Harborview was a stark contrast to the city's glittering downtown. Here, rusted metal structures loomed like forgotten giants, their cracked windows staring blankly into the night. The faint smell of oil and decay hung in the air, mingling with the cold bite of the evening breeze. Streetlights flickered sporadically, casting long shadows that danced across graffiti-covered walls. It was a place where the city's neglected underbelly thrived, hidden from the eyes of most, but not from Marcus Holt. Guided by Rex's keen nose, Marcus moved cautiously through the labyrinth of narrow alleys and abandoned loading docks. The dog's body was taut, ears swiveling as he sniffed the air, every muscle ready to spring into action. Beside him, Lily followed, her steps hesitant but determined. The terror she'd felt earlier was replaced by a flicker of hope, a chance to confront the nightmare that had nearly consumed her. Detective Sarah Blake trailed a few feet behind, her flashlight cutting through the darkness as she scanned their surroundings. Her years on the force had acquainted her with this part of the city's geography. But tonight, it felt different. Charged with a tension that hinted at unseen dangers lurking just out of sight, Marcus's mind raced with fragments of information. Lily's escape wasn't a random event, but part of a larger, sinister pattern. The human trafficking ring operating in Harborview was more organized and ruthless than he had initially suspected. The men who had targeted Lily were likely enforcers for a network that preyed on the city's vulnerable, exploiting fear and silence to maintain control. As they approached a dilapidated warehouse marked only by peeling paint and faded numbers, Rex suddenly stopped, his body stiffening. A low growl rumbled from his throat, a warning signal Marcus trusted without hesitation. The dog's nose twitched as he caught a faint trace of scent, an unmistakable hint that they were close to where Lily had been held. Marcus signaled for silence, motioning for Sarah and Lily to stay back. He crept closer to the entrance, eyes sharp and alert. The rusted metal door hung slightly ajar, revealing a sliver of dim light inside. Voices echoed faintly from within, low, urgent, and tinged with menace. Inside the warehouse, shadows shifted against stacks of wooden crates and industrial equipment. Figures moved with purpose, their faces obscured by darkness. Marcus's military training kicked in. Assess, plan, and act decisively. He counted at least half a dozen men, armed enforcers likely tasked with guarding the captives. The gravity of the situation settled over him. Confronting these criminals would be dangerous. A direct approach risked alerting the entire network. But hesitation was not an option. Lives hung in the balance, and Lily's courage demanded swift action. Moving with practiced stealth, Marcus circled the building, searching for an alternate entry point. Rex stayed close, his senses a vital asset in this perilous terrain. Sarah, familiar with the city's layout, pointed out a narrow ventilation shaft near the rear, a potential access route. It was tight and risky, but it might provide the element of surprise they needed. Marcus nodded, signaling his intent. "I'll go in first. Sarah, cover the back exit. Lily, stay hidden and stay quiet." The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders, but he welcomed it. This was the mission he had trained for, the moment where skill met purpose. As Marcus slipped inside through the shaft, the cold air gave way to the musty scent of neglect. The warehouse's vast interior stretched before him, punctuated by the faint glimmer of flashlights and murmured commands. His heartbeat steadied, every sense heightened to detect the slightest movement. He edged toward a cluster of crates where muffled sounds suggested the presence of captives. His breath slowed, muscles coiled for action. Suddenly, a sharp noise, a misplaced step or a dropped tool, echoed through the cavernous space. Heads turned, and the men's voices rose in alarm. The enforcers moved swiftly, weapons drawn, their shouts piercing the night. Marcus sprang into action, engaging with precision honed by years of combat. His movements were fluid and calculated, disabling one attacker before the others could react fully. Rex's powerful bark shattered the tension as the dog burst through a side entrance, tackling an assailant with unyielding force. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Shouts and scuffles echoed against concrete walls as Marcus and Rex fought to subdue the attackers. Amid the turmoil, Marcus's eyes locked onto a group of terrified figures huddled in a dark corner, captives bound and bruised, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and relief. "Stay down," Marcus commanded, moving swiftly to cut their restraints. Lily rushed forward, her face a mask of determination as she helped free the others. The moment was fragile, fraught with danger, but hope flickered in the midst of despair. Outside, Sarah kept watch, her flashlight sweeping the perimeter. She radioed for backup, her voice steady despite the tension. The traffickers' network was entrenched, and this confrontation was only the beginning. The rescue had rattled the criminals, but the masterminds remained elusive. In the aftermath of the raid, Marcus took stock. Several captives had been freed, but the operation had revealed only a fraction of the trafficking ring's reach. The enforcers were just pawns in a larger game, their orders coming from shadowy figures who operated with impunity. Lily's escape and the rescue had struck a blow, but the fight was far from over. Marcus's resolve hardened as he realized the extent of the danger that lay ahead. Harborview's streets were stained with secrets, and the traffickers would not relinquish their grip without a fierce struggle. Back at their temporary safe house, Marcus debriefed with Sarah and Lily. The rescued victims were receiving medical attention and counseling, but the trauma was etched deep. Lily's bravery had sparked a chain of events that could unravel the entire network, but it had also painted a target on her back. "We're dealing with more than just these thugs," Sarah said grimly. "They're part of a well-oiled machine. Corruption, money, power, all tangled up in this." Her eyes met Marcus's. "We'll need to dig deeper if we want to bring the whole thing down." Marcus nodded, his mind already racing ahead. He thought of Rex, restless and alert even in the relative calm, a reminder that vigilance would be essential. Every clue, every lead mattered now. The rescue was a victory, but it was also an invitation to a larger battle. Lily sat quietly, absorbing the weight of what had happened. Her ordeal had exposed her to the city's darkest corners, but it had also revealed allies she never expected to find. Marcus's steady presence and Sarah's determined partnership offered a flicker of hope in a world that often seemed devoid of it. As the night settled over Harborview once more, the city's pulse beat on, uneasy, uncertain, but not yet defeated. Marcus, Sarah, Lily, and Rex prepared to face the challenges ahead. their resolve forged in the crucible of confrontation. The traffickers had been shaken, but the true fight for justice was just beginning. The morning light filtered through the cracked blinds of a modest office, cluttered with papers, maps, and flickering computer screens. The room smelled faintly of stale coffee and the metallic tang of electronics. An unglamorous but necessary command center where Marcus Holt began piecing together the fractured puzzle of Harborview's human trafficking network. His fingers traced routes and locations on a sprawling map pinned to the wall, each mark a thread leading deeper into the city's dark underbelly. Rex sat loyally by his side, head tilted, ears alert to every sound. The dog's instincts were more than an asset. They were a lifeline in a city that concealed its threats beneath layers of shadow and deception. Marcus's military training had taught him to trust those instincts, to read the subtle signs that others overlooked. Now, those lessons were proving invaluable as they hunted a ruthless enemy. Detective Sarah Blake leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, her eyes sharp and skeptical. Her years on the force had exposed her to Harborview's undercurrents of crime, but even she was surprised by the scope of what Marcus and Lily had uncovered. The traffickers' network was vast, its reach extending far beyond the warehouse raid of the previous night. "We're not just dealing with street-level enforcers," Sarah said, her voice low but firm. "This is an organized operation. Layers of people involved, from recruiters to transporters to buyers. And it's protected by people who should be upholding the law." Her gaze locked with Marcus's, a silent acknowledgement of the corruption that had allowed this to flourish. Marcus nodded. "We need to move carefully. One wrong step, and the whole network could vanish before we can strike." He tapped a series of coordinates on the map, each linked to a pattern of disappearances and suspicious activity. "Rex's tracking led us here. But this is just a fraction of the bigger picture." Sarah pushed off from the doorframe, pulling out a folder thick with case files and photographs. "I've been compiling evidence from past cases, missing persons reports, witness statements, even some internal memos from precincts that hint at interference. It's clear there are people within the system turning a blind eye, or worse." Her expression hardened. "If we want to break this ring, we'll have to expose them." Lily sat quietly in the corner, her eyes focused but weary. Her ordeal had given her a unique window into the traffickers' methods and routes, information she shared reluctantly but with growing resolve. "They use the city's outskirts as drop points," she revealed. "Places where the police rarely patrol. They move people quickly, changing locations to avoid detection." Marcus absorbed every detail, his tactical mind assembling a strategy. He knew that relying solely on brute force would be futile against a network so deeply embedded. Instead, intelligence and precision were paramount. Rex's acute senses would guide them through the shadows, while Sarah's connections within the department could unravel the web of complicity. "We need to identify the key players," Marcus said, glancing at Sarah. "The ones pulling the strings. If we can get evidence against them, it'll cripple the whole operation." He paused, considering the risks. But that means getting inside, gaining their trust, or catching them off guard. Sarah's lips twitched in a grim smile. "Infiltration isn't exactly my specialty, but I know people who can help. Undercover officers, informants embedded in the city's criminal veins. We can use their insights to map out the hierarchy." She tapped a pen against the folder. "And I've been in touch with a federal task force that's been monitoring trafficking in the region. They might be willing to collaborate?" Marcus's gaze shifted to Rex, who suddenly rose, nose twitching as he caught a new scent from the open window. The dog's body tensed, eyes fixed on a distant alley beyond the building. Without hesitation, Rex padded over and scratched at the door, his silent command impossible to ignore. Marcus followed Rex outside, stepping into the cool morning air that carried the city's cacophony: honking cars, distant sirens, the chatter of pedestrians. The alley Rex fixated on was narrow and lined with dumpsters, its shadows deep despite the rising sun. Marcus's trained eyes scanned the area, noting a faint trail of discarded items, clothing, scraps of fabric, that Rex sniffed eagerly. "It's fresh," Marcus murmured, crouching to examine the ground. "Someone passed through here recently." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small packet of evidence bags. "We need to collect everything, any trace that might lead us to their next move." Sarah joined them, pulling on gloves as she photographed the scene. "This could be a drop site," she said, voice low, "or a place where victims were held temporarily." Her eyes flicked to Marcus. "We'll need to run forensic tests on these samples and cross-reference them with other locations." Back in the office, the atmosphere was charged with a mixture of urgency and cautious optimism. Marcus coordinated with his contacts, former military associates, local activists, and tech experts, to analyze data and monitor suspicious activities. Each new piece of information added clarity to the sprawling network, revealing patterns that had previously gone unnoticed. Lily, though still fragile, found strength in the team's determination. She began working with counselors and advocates, her voice becoming a vital part of the effort to understand and dismantle the trafficking ring. Her first-hand knowledge was a beacon in the darkness, guiding Marcus and Sarah through the maze of deception. As days turned into nights filled with surveillance and strategy sessions, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The city's shadows seemed to shift with a new awareness, as if the traffickers sensed the tightening noose. Rex remained vigilant, alert to the slightest disturbance, his protective instincts a constant reassurance. Sarah's contacts delivered a breakthrough. A confidential informant with ties to the network agreed to meet. The meeting was arranged in a nondescript cafe on the city's edge, a place where whispered secrets carried weight and danger, lurked beneath polite smiles. Marcus and Sarah prepared meticulously, aware that one misstep could jeopardize everything. Rex sat patiently at Marcus's feet, the dog's calm demeanor belying the tension in the air. Lily, though not present, was a constant presence in their minds, a reminder of what was at stake. The informant arrived, a young man with nervous eyes and a guarded demeanor. His information was fragmentary but invaluable: names, locations, schedules. Each revelation peeled back another layer of the trafficking ring, exposing the corruption and cruelty that had been hidden in plain sight. As the meeting ended, Marcus felt the weight of the mission settle more heavily on his shoulders. The road ahead was fraught with peril, but the pieces were starting to fit together. With Rex's instincts, Sarah's determination, and Lily's courage, they were building a coalition capable of striking at the heart of Harborview's darkest secret. In the quiet moments before dawn, Marcus reflected on the journey so far. The city was a maze of light and shadow, hope and despair. But with every step forward, they edged closer to justice. Each clue, each alliance, a beacon cutting through the darkness that threatened to consume them all. The once bustling cafe where Marcus, Sarah, and their informant had met now lay under a blanket of pre-dawn silence, its windows darkened and shuttered. Outside, Harborview's streets were waking, the city's pulse quickening with the first light. But beneath the surface of this urban rhythm, a more insidious beat persisted, one Marcus had come to recognize: the steady thrum of corruption shielding a network of criminals preying on the vulnerable. It was a network far more entrenched than Marcus had initially suspected. As he pored over the latest intelligence with Sarah and Rex at his side, the pieces converged into a chilling picture. At the heart of the trafficking ring was Victor Crane, a high-ranking city councilman whose polished public persona masked a tangled web of deceit and power. Crane's influence stretched into law enforcement, judiciary, and business, creating a protective shield around the criminals who served his interests. Crane's been using his position to divert investigations and silence witnesses, Sarah explained, her voice tight with frustration. There are reports of officers being reassigned or pressured to drop cases whenever his name comes up. She slid a folder across the table, filled with memos and leaked emails detailing the cover-ups. It's no coincidence that the trafficking ring has operated with near impunity. Marcus's expression darkened. The realization cut deep. The enemy wasn't just the men dragging victims into vans or the enforcers guarding warehouses. It was the system itself, corrupted from within. His military training had prepared him for hard fights, but this was a battle against shadows woven into the fabric of the city. Rex, sensing the tension, paced restlessly, nostrils flaring as he caught scents invisible to human senses. The dog's instincts had been vital in navigating this labyrinth of deceit, and Marcus knew they would be indispensable as they pushed deeper into hostile territory. Crane's reach complicates everything, Marcus said, fingers tracing the contours of the evidence. We can't trust the usual channels. We'll need to build our own network, gather undeniable proof, and find allies outside the city's corrupted core. Sarah nodded. I've started reaching out to federal contacts and internal affairs. They're wary but willing to listen. If we can present a solid case, it might force their hand. Her gaze sharpened. But we have to be careful. Crane's people are watching, and they won't hesitate to strike back. The weight of the task pressed heavily on the small team. Harborview's corruption was a fortress, but cracks were beginning to show. Marcus's tactical mind began formulating a plan to exploit those weaknesses, leveraging both street-level intelligence and high-level surveillance. Rex's keen senses would guide them through the city's dangerous veins, sniffing out threats and hidden clues. Meanwhile, Lily's recovery continued, her resilience a beacon amid the darkness. She had become more than a survivor. She was an active participant in the fight, sharing insights about the traffickers' methods and routes. Her courage inspired Marcus and Sarah, reminding them of the human lives at stake beyond the cold statistics and political machinations. One evening, as the city's skyline glittered against a fading sunset, Marcus and Sarah met with a group of local activists and former military contacts. The gathering was held in a nondescript community center, its walls adorned with posters advocating justice and protection for the vulnerable. The room buzzed with quiet determination, a coalition forming in defiance of the city's corruption. Among them was Elena, a fierce advocate whose work with trafficking survivors had earned her respect and enemies alike. We've seen the patterns, she told the group. Crane's influence runs deep, but so does our resolve. If we unite, our voices are louder than their threats. Her eyes locked with Marcus's. We'll provide safe houses, legal aid, and public awareness. This fight isn't just on the streets. It's in hearts and minds. Marcus felt the power of that unity, a force that corruption could not easily crush. Rex lay quietly at his feet, alert but calm, embodying the steady loyalty that underpinned their efforts. As plans coalesced, a new lead emerged, a cryptic message from an informant deep within Crane's circle. The message hinted at a clandestine meeting, scheduled in the dead of night, a gathering where key players conspired to reinforce their grip on the city. Marcus saw an opportunity to strike a blow that could expose the entire operation. Preparation was meticulous. Marcus coordinated with Sarah, Elena, and their allies, outlining roles and contingencies. Rex's training was put to use once again. The dog's ability to track scents and detect danger would be pivotal during the operation. The night of the meeting, Harborview's streets were cloaked in fog, the city's usual vibrancy muted by the cold mist. Marcus and Sarah moved through the shadows, their team positioned strategically to monitor entrances and exits. The location was an upscale hotel suite, far removed from the warehouses and alleys they had previously infiltrated, a stark reminder of the disparity between the traffickers' world and their victims. Inside, the conspirators gathered, unaware that their secrets were about to be unraveled. Marcus's team observed from concealed vantage points, recording conversations and gathering evidence. Every word, every gesture was a piece of the puzzle, painting a damning portrait of greed and cruelty. Suddenly, a noise outside prompted Rex to growl softly. Marcus's heart quickened as he scanned the perimeter, senses on high alert. The traffickers' enforcers had been tipped off. An ambush was imminent. The ensuing confrontation was swift and intense. Marcus and Sarah's team moved decisively, using the element of surprise to detain key players and secure the evidence. Rex's presence was crucial. His ability to detect hidden threats and protect the team prevented casualties. In the aftermath, the collected evidence was overwhelming. The tapes, documents, and testimonies laid bare Victor Crane's involvement and the complicity of numerous officials. The city's protective veil was torn away, exposing the rotten core beneath. Marcus and Sarah knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger. Crane's supporters would fight back fiercely to maintain their power. But the tide had begun to turn. The coalition of activists, law enforcement, and survivors was growing stronger, more determined. As dawn broke over Harborview, Marcus stood with Sarah and Rex on a rooftop overlooking the city. The skyline shimmered with the first light, a beacon of hope against the darkness they had confronted. The fight against corruption and human trafficking was far from over, but for the first time, justice felt within reach. Rex nudged Marcus's hand, a reminder that vigilance and loyalty were their greatest weapons. Together, they would continue to unravel the tangled web, one thread at a time, until Harborview was free from the shadows that had long plagued it. The air was thick with anticipation as Marcus Holt stood in the dimly lit room of a community hall, nestled deep within Harborview's east side. Around him, a growing coalition of local activists, former military operatives, and concerned citizens gathered, their faces etched with determination and hope. The walls were adorned with banners advocating for justice and protection, a stark contrast to the shadows they sought to dispel. This was no longer a solitary fight. It was a collective stand against the darkness that had gripped the city for far too long. Marcus surveyed the room, noting the mix of hardened veterans and fresh faces, each bringing unique skills and perspectives. Among them was Elena, the fiery advocate whose tireless work with trafficking survivors had galvanized the community. She moved through the crowd with purpose, coordinating efforts to provide safe houses and legal assistance for those rescued from the trafficking ring. Her presence was a beacon for many, a reminder that the fight extended beyond raids and arrests. It was a battle for healing and restoration. At Marcus's side, Rex paced quietly, alert to every sound and movement. The dog's instincts were a crucial asset, a living sensor that had guided them through the perilous maze of Harborview's criminal underworld. Rex's keen nose had uncovered clues that human eyes missed, and his protective nature lent an unspoken reassurance to the entire team. Detective Sarah Blake addressed the gathering, her voice steady and resolute. "We've uncovered significant evidence connecting key players to the trafficking network, but the operation is more extensive than we imagined. It's not just about rescue. It's about dismantling a system that exploits and corrupts. That's why your support is vital." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "Together, we can build a network that protects victims, exposes criminals, and holds corrupt officials accountable." Marcus stepped forward, laying out a coordinated plan. Intelligence gathered through surveillance, informants, and Rex's tracking would guide targeted operations. Meanwhile, activists and community members would focus on outreach, awareness campaigns, and victim support. The synergy between military precision and grassroots passion created a formidable force. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Shadow, a scrappy mixed-breed dog belonging to a local child named Mia. Shadow had a keen sense for danger and a heart attuned to the city's hidden pain. One afternoon, Shadow led Mia to a discarded backpack near an abandoned lot on the city's outskirts. Inside, they found a hastily scrawled note and a torn piece of fabric matching descriptions given by victims. When Marcus and Sarah examined the clue, their suspicions were confirmed. The note pointed to a covert holding site used by traffickers to temporarily house victims before transport. The discovery energized the team, providing a tangible lead that connected disparate pieces of the puzzle. With renewed resolve, Marcus coordinated a multi-agency operation. Local activists provided critical intel on safe routes and hidden areas, while former military contacts supplied tactical support and equipment. The plan was to execute a single raid that would catch traffickers off guard and rescue those still trapped. On the night of the operation, the city seemed to hold its breath. Marcus, Sarah, Rex, and their allies moved with precision through the shadows, their movements synchronized and deliberate. Rex led the way, his nose guiding them to the exact location indicated by Shadow's discovery. The operation was tense, each step fraught with the risk of exposure. Inside the dilapidated warehouse, the atmosphere was thick with fear and desperation. Victims huddled in corners, their eyes reflecting a mixture of terror and hope as the rescuers burst in. Marcus and his team worked swiftly, securing the area and providing immediate medical care. Rex stood guard, his presence a fierce deterrent to any resistance. The raid was a success, resulting in the liberation of several victims and the seizure of incriminating evidence. But the mastermind behind the operation remained elusive, a shadowy figure who continued to orchestrate the trafficking ring from the shadows. Back at the safe house, Lily reunited with her dog, Shadow, a moment charged with emotion and relief. The bond between the two animals mirrored the human connections that had been forged in the crucible of adversity. Lily's courage and the dog's instincts had become symbols of resilience and hope for the entire community. As dawn broke over Harborview, Marcus convened with Sarah, Elena, and their allies to assess the operation's impact. The evidence gathered would fuel upcoming investigations and prosecutions, but the fight was far from over. The network was vast and deeply entrenched, requiring sustained effort and unwavering vigilance. In the days that followed, Marcus expanded his reach, contacting former military comrades skilled in intelligence and cyber operations. Their expertise would enhance surveillance capabilities, intercept communications, and disrupt traffickers' logistics. The coalition grew stronger, a testament to the power of unity against a common enemy. Sarah intensified her efforts within the police department, advocating for internal reforms and protections for whistleblowers. Her persistence began to chip away at the culture of silence, encouraging officers to come forward with critical information. Together, they worked to expose corrupt officials who had shielded the trafficking ring. Meanwhile, community outreach programs flourished. Survivors received counseling, legal assistance, and opportunities to rebuild their lives. Public awareness campaigns educated citizens about the signs of trafficking and how to report suspicious activity. Harborview's residents, once resigned to the city's dark undercurrents, found new purpose in the collective fight for justice. Marcus reflected on the journey so far, the dangers faced, the lives saved, and the alliances forged. The city was a complex tapestry of light and shadow, but with each step, they were unraveling the threads of corruption and cruelty. Rex, ever vigilant, remained at his side, a constant reminder that loyalty and courage were the foundation of their mission. As night fell, Marcus prepared for the next phase of their campaign. The traffickers' network was far from dismantled, but with new evidence, allies, and determination, they were closing the net. The path ahead was uncertain and perilous, but the coalition's resolve was unbreakable. In the quiet moments before sleep, Marcus looked out over Harborview's skyline, the city's lights flickering like stars against the darkness. Somewhere in those shadows, the fight continued, driven by the unwavering belief that even in the darkest places, hope could take root and grow. The night air was thick with tension as Marcus Holt surveyed the perimeter of the traffickers' stronghold. It was a sprawling complex hidden within the industrial outskirts of Harborview, a maze of warehouses, shipping containers, and rusted fencing. The flicker of distant floodlights cast long, shifting shadows across cracked pavement and tangled undergrowth. Somewhere within the labyrinth, victims, some still trapped, waited for rescue. This was the moment their months of painstaking investigation had been building toward. Marcus crouched low beside a stack of wooden crates, his breath steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Rex, his loyal German shepherd, sat alert at his side, muscles coiled and eyes sharp, attuned to the slightest movement. The dog's silent vigilance was a comfort and a weapon in the darkness. Nearby, Detective Sarah Blake checked her radio, her face set with grim determination. The coalition of activists, former military operatives, and law enforcement officers spread out around them, ready to strike. "This is it," Marcus whispered, scanning the perimeter one final time. "We move on my signal. Stick to the plan. Quiet, swift, and coordinated. No room for error." Sarah nodded, her voice barely above a breath. "We've got backup on the way, but timing is critical. If they get wind of this before we're inside, the victims could be moved, or worse." The team split into tactical groups, each assigned specific sectors of the compound. Marcus led the entry team, tasked with breaching the main warehouse where intelligence indicated the highest concentration of captives. Rex slipped ahead, his nose working furiously to track scents that would guide them through the maze of corridors and storage rooms. Inside the warehouse, the air was thick with dust and the faint scent of machinery and sweat. Dim emergency lights cast an eerie glow over rows of stacked crates and metal shelves. The distant murmur of voices and the occasional shuffle of footsteps confirmed the presence of the traffickers and their prisoners. The captives, huddled in small groups, bore the marks of fear and exhaustion. Marcus signaled his team to move forward, each step measured and silent. Rex's low growl was the only sound to break the stillness as he led them to a locked chain-link enclosure where several victims were confined. Using a small bolt cutter, Marcus swiftly freed the first group, whispering reassurances as frightened faces emerged from the shadows. Suddenly, The sharp crack of a gunshot echoed through the warehouse, shattering the fragile silence. Alarms blared as the traffickers realized the raid was underway. Chaos erupted. Shouts, the clatter of weapons, and frantic movement filling the confined space. Marcus reacted instantly, taking cover behind a stack of crates as bullets ricocheted nearby. His team returned fire with calculated precision, working to suppress the attackers while continuing to free the captives. Rex lunged at an assailant attempting to flank them, teeth bared and growling fiercely, his presence a formidable deterrent. The battle was intense but brief. The element of surprise coupled with the team's training gave them the upper hand. Within minutes, most of the traffickers were subdued or fleeing into the maze of shipping containers outside. Backup units arrived, sealing off escape routes and securing the perimeter. Marcus moved through the warehouse, guiding the rescued victims toward safety. Medical personnel and counselors awaited outside, ready to provide urgent care and comfort. Among the liberated was Lily, her face pale but resolute. Reunited with Shadow, the scrappy dog who had led rescuers to a critical clue weeks earlier. As the last victims were evacuated, Marcus's attention turned to the evidence scattered throughout the warehouse: documents, electronic devices, and personal belongings. Each piece was meticulously cataloged by the forensic team, promising to unravel further layers of the trafficking network. Despite the success, Marcus knew this was only a battle won in a larger war. The mastermind remained at large, and the city's shadows still harbored threats. Yet the operation had dealt a significant blow to the ring's infrastructure, disrupting their capacity to harm. Back at the command center, Marcus and Sarah debriefed with their coalition. The mood was a mix of relief and urgency. The rescued victims would need long-term support, and the intelligence gathered opened new avenues for investigation. "We've sent a clear message tonight," Sarah said, her eyes reflecting both weariness and resolve. "But the fight isn't over. We're closing in." Marcus nodded, his gaze steady. "This operation showed what we can achieve together: military precision, local knowledge, and community strength. We'll keep pressing until the last victim is free and the traffickers are behind bars." Outside, Rex rested, his body tired but alert, as if sensing the battles yet to come. Marcus knelt beside him, running a hand over the dog's thick fur. "Good work, partner. We're just getting started." The city of Harborview stirred beneath the rising sun, its streets slowly waking to a new day. Amid its vibrant chaos, a quiet hope had taken root. A promise that in the darkest corners, courage and unity could light the way toward justice. The early morning fog clung low to the streets of Harborview as Marcus Holt watched from a shadowed rooftop, the city sprawling beneath him like a living map of secrets and dangers. His eyes narrowed as he observed the sleek black car idling at the curb below, a vehicle linked through weeks of surveillance to Victor Crane, the corrupt city councilman whose grip on the trafficking ring had tightened like a noose around the city's throat. Inside the car, Crane sat with an air of calculated calm, unaware that Marcus and his team were closing in. The evidence collected during recent raids had painted a damning portrait of Crane's involvement, and now it was time to confront the man who had orchestrated so much suffering from behind a polished facade. Marcus signaled to Detective Sarah Blake, perched beside him, her expression resolute. "This is it. We move fast and precise. No room for error." Sarah nodded, gripping her radio tightly. "Backup is en route, but we can't wait. Crane's about to slip away." With practiced stealth, Marcus descended from the rooftop, blending into the maze of alleys and side streets. Rex led the way, his nose twitching as he tracked the faint scent of Crane's path. The dog's unerring instincts were a lifeline in the hunt, guiding Marcus through the labyrinthine cityscape toward the inevitable confrontation. As Crane's car pulled away from the curb, Marcus and Sarah emerged from the shadows, blocking the vehicle's path near an abandoned dockyard. The sudden appearance startled the driver, who slammed on the brakes, tires screeching against the cracked pavement. "Victor Crane," Marcus called out, his voice steady and commanding. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, human trafficking, and obstruction of justice." Crane's face twisted in a mask of shock and fury. "You don't have anything on me," he spat, reaching inside his jacket. Before he could draw a weapon, Marcus was upon him, moving with the precision of a seasoned operative. Rex lunged, his powerful frame pinning Crane's arm, teeth bared but controlled, a warning rather than an attack. Sarah cuffed Crane, reading him his rights as backup arrived, officers sweeping in to secure the area. The scene was tense, charged with the knowledge that the capture of Crane was a pivotal moment in dismantling the trafficking network. But Crane was not willing to go quietly. As he was led toward a squad car, he muttered threats and promises of retribution, his eyes burning with the desperation of a man whose empire was crumbling. In the interrogation room, Marcus sat across from Crane, the city's distant hum a backdrop to a confrontation years in the making. Crane's posture was defiant. But beneath the bravado lurked a man cornered by his own misdeeds. "You think this ends here?" Crane sneered. "There are others, more powerful than me. You're chasing shadows." Marcus leaned forward, voice cold and unwavering. "We're chasing the truth, and it's catching up to you." The ensuing investigation peeled back layers of deception, revealing how Crane had manipulated city officials, law enforcement, and judicial processes to shield the trafficking ring. His attempts to evade justice only deepened the resolve of Marcus, Sarah, and their allies. Crane's arrest sparked a cascade of inquiries and arrests, shaking the foundations of Harborview's corrupt establishment. Yet, as Marcus knew, the shadows ran deep, and the fight to root out all those complicit was far from over. Outside the interrogation room, Rex sat patiently, his watchful eyes reflecting the weight of the battle fought and the challenges ahead. Marcus placed a hand on the dog's head, drawing strength from their unbreakable bond. The city, scarred but resilient, began to stir with the promise of change. Justice had taken a decisive step forward, but Marcus understood that vigilance must remain. Harborview's future depended on it, a future where light could finally penetrate the darkness. The morning sun cast a pale light over Harborview's City Hall, its glass facade reflecting a community on the cusp of transformation. The arrest of Victor Crane had sent shockwaves through the political and law enforcement ranks, triggering a purge that rippled far beyond the corridors of power. Corrupt officials once shielded by Crane's influence now faced scrutiny, their ties to the human trafficking network unraveling under the weight of mounting evidence. Marcus Holt stood among a gathering of federal agents, local police, and community leaders assembled for a press conference in the city's central plaza. The air buzzed with anticipation, citizens hungry for justice and healing after years of silence and fear. Rex, ever vigilant, sat quietly beside Marcus, his presence a steady reminder of the team's unyielding commitment. Detective Sarah Blake stepped to the podium, her voice clear and resolute as she addressed the crowd. Today marks a turning point for Harborview. The trafficking ring that preyed on our most vulnerable has been dismantled, and those responsible are being held accountable. Her eyes swept across the sea of faces, many marked by relief and cautious hope. This victory belongs to every survivor, every advocate, and every officer who refused to look away. Behind the scenes, Marcus worked tirelessly with prosecutors and investigators to ensure that the wave of arrests was thorough and just. The evidence collected, from intercepted communications to survivor testimonies, formed an unassailable case against the traffickers and their enablers. Trials were underway, and the city's justice system, bruised but determined, sought to restore faith in its institutions. Lily, now surrounded by counselors and advocates, began the slow journey of healing. Her resilience became emblematic of the city's broader recovery. Through support groups and educational programs, survivors found strength in community, breaking the chains of trauma that had bound them. Marcus visited often, offering quiet encouragement, understanding the importance of presence beyond the battlefield. The city itself responded to the crisis with renewed vigor. Neighborhoods once neglected received investment in social services, education, and law enforcement reform. Public awareness campaigns educated citizens about human trafficking signs and how to report suspicious activities. Harborview's streets, once shadows of fear, gradually filled with light and life. Marcus, Sarah, and their allies became hope and resilience, their faces recognized not just for their roles in law enforcement, but as champions of justice. Yet they remained grounded, aware that vigilance was essential to prevent the resurgence of such darkness. One evening, as the city's skyline glittered against the twilight, Marcus stood on a rooftop with Sarah and Rex. The air was cool, carrying the distant sounds of a city rebuilding itself. "We've come a long way," Sarah said softly, eyes reflecting the fading light. "But the work continues." Marcus nodded, his gaze steady. "The fight against injustice never ends. But with allies like you and the strength of this community, we stand a chance." Rex nudged Marcus's hand, a silent affirmation of loyalty and readiness. Together, they watched as Harborview's lights flickered on, each one a testament to survival, courage, and the enduring spirit of those who refuse to be broken. In the heart of the city, healing had begun. The scars remained, but so did the promise of a brighter, safer future, woven through the quiet strength of its people and the relentless pursuit of justice. The quiet hum of the city settled into the early morning as Marcus Holt sat alone on the rooftop overlooking Harborview's sprawling skyline. The first light of dawn painted the horizon in soft hues of pink and gold, casting long shadows that seemed to retreat before the promise of a new day. Below, the street stirred gently, the rhythm of a city healing, waking from a long nightmare. Marcus's thoughts drifted over the months of relentless pursuit, the countless hours tracking leads, the tense confrontations, the faces of those he had helped save. Most vivid was the bond he shared with Rex, his steadfast companion whose instincts had saved lives more times than he could count. The dog lay quietly beside him now, eyes half closed but alert, a living testament to loyalty and courage. The journey had been arduous. Lily's recovery and return to a semblance of normal life echoed the resilience Marcus had witnessed throughout Harborview. Each survivor was a beacon of hope, reminder that even in the darkest corners, healing was possible. The community's strength, forged through shared pain and determination, had become the city's most powerful weapon against the shadows. Marcus reflected on the lessons learned, the necessity of vigilance, the importance of alliances, and the unyielding power of compassion. The fight against injustice was not a solitary battle, but a collective effort, woven through the actions of many who refused to remain silent or passive. In the distance, the familiar sound of city life grew. A child's laughter, the murmur of conversations, the steady beat of footsteps on pavement. Life was moving forward, fragile but undeniable. Marcus knew that the scars of the past would linger, but so would the courage to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He glanced down at Rex, who lifted his head, meeting Marcus's gaze with a quiet understanding. They were partners bound not just by mission, but by trust and unwavering commitment. Together, they had turned despair into hope, vulnerability into strength. As the sun rose higher, casting a warm glow over Harborview, Marcus rose to his feet. The city below was alive with possibility, a canvas waiting to be shaped by those willing to stand for justice and protect the vulnerable. His heart was steady, his resolve firm. The story was far from over. But for now, in this moment of calm, Marcus allowed himself to feel the weight lifted, a silent promise that no matter what came next, he and Rex would face it together. With one last glance at the awakening city, Marcus descended from the rooftop, ready to continue the mission that had become his life. Safeguarding the innocent, confronting darkness wherever it hid, and nurturing the fragile light of hope that could never be extinguished.